Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Turfgrass Epistemology. I hope everybody's staying warm. It's getting cold here. It's been snowing most of the day here in Lexington. Not too bad. It's supposed to snow again tonight. And I hear it's getting cold even in my old neck of the woods in Oklahoma and Texas. So hope everybody's staying warm. If you're joining me, this is Turfgrass Epistemology. We are here to explore how we know what we know about turfgrass science. Tonight, we're going to go over a very short video. Then we're going to go over a scientific article, kind of like what we used to do, months and months ago, years ago. We've been going over soil health and organic products. And tonight we will continue that topic and we'll be talking about organic fertilizers on sport turf. Now, I've asked for people to send me video clips or videos you'd like for me to go over, and I've received several requests. Thank you for those people who have sent those in. And I'm still open for requests. I'm in the next, month or two, I have 4 more videos. So I'll be going over a video from the Lawn Care Nut, Ron Henry. I was asked to go over a Reddit post, and I have no idea what Reddit even is. I had to go ask, what is Reddit? I don't know what that is. But I went and looked at it. I'm like, oh, okay. This tells you what I know about all this online stuff. I don't even understand what it meant by Reddit. I read it, so whatever. I'm a little slow sometimes. But I've been asked to go over that, so I'll go over that on an episode. And there's another channel called the Pest and Lawn Ginja. I don't know how to pronounce that. And I'll be going over a video from that channel as well in the upcoming month or two. I won't be doing a video every episode. It'll only be maybe once a week or once every other week. But those are some videos on the list. If I didn't mention a video that you sent me, please remind me. Send it back and say, hey, I sent you this or whatever. But that's what I have on the list right now. So if you want me to go over another video that I haven't mentioned, or another channel that I haven't mentioned, then please do so. I'm also considering doing something very quite different for the members, or probably even, I might even just do it for the pro members, depending on how much input I have. I'm trying to figure out a way to have the members select or choose a video for me, without notice. I'll just show up on a normal day. And what I'd like to figure out is how to get the members to just, I don't know how to do that, but either vote on it or just show me a video and I'll just go watch it, and I'll literally watch it for the very first time live. And you guys can kind of see my thoughts. And a lot of times I do that anyway. I try my best. What I do when you guys send me a video is I will watch enough of it to determine whether or not it's something I want to go over. And then I stop. I try not to watch any more of it if I can, because I'd like to have my sincere, genuine reaction shown on the show. But if you all can think of a way to, select one for me without me knowing until I come on air. Maybe I can have a backup video just in case it doesn't work or something. I don't know. But I think that might be something creative. I'm always looking for something creative, something different, something new. And so the idea being that I would come unprepared. I would just come and watch the video just as the very first time you all watched it and give you my sincere input. So I'm working on that. I don't know how to do it, but I'm working on that. Okay. So tonight we have an extremely short video and then a pretty short, scientific article as well. It's part 2 of an article I already went over. And for those of you who are joining me, I finally figured out how to get the text and stuff on the screen. And last week was madness. There was over 100 people on the show live, or in the chat live last week, and they were just chatting up a storm, and it was really great. I really appreciate everybody showing up for that and participating in the chat. But I couldn't keep up with it, and I realized later I missed some questions and I missed some comments because I waited till the end of the show. So if that continues again, which is very good, I'll probably just stop and address the comments as I go. And so I can put it on screen now. I finally figured that out. Had a couple people reach out to me, and I finally figured it out. But for example, Andrew Burris says, I feel like there's a bit of sarcasm in the video description. What was the video description? I don't even remember what the video description was. Oh, on the video description from last week. Yeah, there was just a teeny bit from last week. Just a teeny bit of sarcasm. Sarcasm from last week. I don't remember what I titled this episode. I'm a little bit, let me see what I titled it. Oh, well, no, we must be talking about last week because this is just organic fertilizer change soil properties on sport turf. Yeah. Believe it or not, you may have it is possible to adjust soil physical properties with organic materials. So let's not assume too many things incorrectly here. But Jason Swaby says Yard Brawl hasn't posted since your last live stream. Yeah, you never know. I mean, there's a lot of YouTubers who I've critiqued their videos and contents that have taken a pause, and it could just be coincidental. Believe me, when it comes to BS artists, it's hard for them to stay away. They'll come back. I won't name any names, but there's a couple that haven't posted anything in months, and they normally post things weekly. But they could just be on vacation or doing something during the winter. Who knows what they're doing? Just busy. They'll be back. Don't worry. There's plenty of content creators, BS creators out there to keep me busy for a long time. Oh, yes. Thanks, Ashanti. Please don't forget to hit the like button. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. It helps out the show a lot. And if you want to subscribe, consider subscribing and even becoming a member. Members help keep the show on air. And then any remaining revenue helps support Turfgrass research, which I was knee deep in today. I love doing graphs and tables. I love doing writing. I just like creating something where there was nothing, and now I created. I'm just motivated by that. But man, today was rough. I'm trying to finish this sulfur paper, and it was not easy. So I've been working on it for 3 days straight, just the graphs, and I finally got it figured out. And I got probably all the data in an organized fashion now. So now I can just sit back and start writing. So it's been 2 or 3 years. It's been a year or two since I finished that project. I'm just not getting to the point where I can write it. So, yeah, that's what the Turfgrass research helps support, or that's what the revenue from this channel helps support, is Turfgrass research like that and publishing stuff like that. Oh, Lawn Care Minimalist says, oh, ginger. Is that, oh, for ginger. Okay. You see, I'm slow. I don't get it. Very good. That makes sense. Because the gentleman on that channel has red hair, like I did when I had hair, and my son has red hair. So, oh no, yeah, that reminds me. Michael Conroy mentions he says, does anyone ever record your talks at conferences you speak at? Yes, they do. And I will be at thanks for saying that, Michael. I will be at the New England Turfgrass Research Conference. And it's in a week or 2 weeks. It's the beginning of March. And I don't know if they record it or not. But I'll tell you what, Michael, I gave a talk. You know, when you give so many talks, you're going to give some really good talks, and you're going to give some clunkers. You're going to bomb sometimes. And I don't know how it works. Sometimes I go in and I'm thinking I have everything lined up, and I just completely bomb. And I gave a talk a year or two ago. I can't remember what year it was, at the GCSA, which I've talked at numerous times. And it was the worst talk I've ever given in my life. I left that room and just thought, what happened? It was awful. I can't explain it. But at the Sports Field Managers Association that same year, I gave the best talk of my life. It was literally I knew from the second I said, thank you all for being here, it was just going to be a good day, and it just flowed. It was great. And the reason I mentioned that, Mike, is because they recorded all those presentations. And I'm like, man, that was a really good talk. I'd like to know what it was about the talk that worked out well so I can learn. I'd like to know, how I can get better at what I'm doing. And I went to go look for the recording, and it was one of only 2 talks that got deleted or malfunctioned and didn't get recorded. I'm like, oh man, because I was actually wanting to know, how can I get better? That was clearly a good talk. I don't know why one talk bombs and one talk is really good, and anyway, so the one time I went to go look for a recording of mine, the IT, even when I'm not in charge of it, malfunctioned, didn't work. So, but yes, they do record some of my talks. I don't really know where you'd go find them. I guess you could go find some on the ASA websites, like the old conferences I would give talks at. But those are scientific talks. They're exactly 12 minutes to 15 minutes. If you go over, they'll get the hook and yank you off the stage. I mean, it's very scientifically organized. So I don't know if that's what you're looking for. But you can search their database somewhere. A lot of times they have talks. You may have to be a member. I don't know. The GCSA has a couple of my talks on their website. Again, you might have to be a member for those webinars. I don't know. But yeah, sometimes they do record stuff. Okay, guys, let's get started. Tonight, the video I'm going to go over is from a channel that I thought the Lawn Care Nut was the #1 lawn care channel because he has like 500,000 subscribers. It's huge. But I Googled lawn organic fertilizers or organic fertilizers lawns or something like that. And this channel popped up called Silver Symbol, which has almost 1 million subscribers. I don't know if he's pure lawn care, if he does other things, I don't know. But I was like, good God. I mean, that's crazy. So I watched this video, and I'm only going to watch the first 4 or 5 minutes because it's very pertinent to the article that we're going to go over. So the article we're going to go over is about organic fertilizer. And a lot of times the marketing materials with these organic fertilizers will contain comments and claims such as, use the organic fertilizers and it's going to enhance your soil structure, or it's going to increase your microbial activity, or it's going to increase your water holding capacity, or it's going to increase your hydraulic conductivity, your water movement, or it's going to lower your bulk density, or it's going to increase the softness. There's all these claims on these organic fertilizers. And before I go on, let me make sure it's clear, everybody understands my position on this. And that is, it is very possible to achieve many of those claims. I want to make sure that's clear. It is possible. But, and this is a huge but, okay? This is like a J-Lo size butt or a Kardashian size butt, okay? It's a huge but. That only comes with an incredibly long time of applying these fertilizers and applying them these organic fertilizers at very high rates, okay? Usually when you're applying like normal nitrogen rates or you're applying normal phosphorus rates with these organic fertilizers and you're doing it for a year or 2 or 3, you're not going to be able to measure any significant impact in soil physical properties. But I want to make sure it's clear. It is possible. There is a little bit of research that's gone out 15 years. And around that 10 to 15 year mark, oftentimes we can see very subtle, in my opinion, biologically insignificant changes. But there is a statistical increase in things like organic matter or soil microbial activity or things like that. But it's usually very small. It's statistical. I mean, I'll grant you that. But whether it's biologically significant or not, I would argue that it's not. Okay. So having said that, that's the reason we're going over organic fertilizers. It's not because it's about soil health and some of the claims that come along with these natural organic fertilizers. And this video tonight that I'm going to go over has some of those claims in it. So let's get started without further ado.
This video is going to show you how to have a beautiful lawn using organic fertilizer, but it's different because I've made a lot of mistakes, spent a lot of money, and now I'm going to share with you the technique that works. It costs less, it's easy to do, and you can have the same results yourself at home. So watch this video and I'll show you how.
It says going organic.
Going organic doesn't mean that you have to be committed to going 100% organic. I incorporate some organic products into my lawn and landscaping, and I get a lot of benefits doing that. I am able to reduce the chemical usage that I have in my lot, and
Okay, so that's one claim, reduce chemical usage. And if you remember a week or 2 ago, I went over part 1 of this scientific article. And if I remember correctly, it did it have chemical usage? I can't remember if I've gone over that or not. But that's one claim that you hear a lot of. You can reduce your chemical usage. There's very little evidence to support that at all, especially within the first year or 2. But that's one claim that he's brought up so far. Continue.
I get those benefits of increasing my microbial activity.
Okay, so increase microbial activity, and that's fairly easy to measure. There's a lot of different ways to measure, like, are your microbes increasing? There's mass, there's number of different types of microbes, there's respiration, there's all sorts of different ways we can measure microbes. But that's fairly easy to measure. And again, it is possible, okay? It's not completely without merit to say applying natural organic fertilizers will result in increased soil microbial activity. It's possible, but is it probable within some reasonable time? Most of the time it's not. Okay, so if you look into the literature, you will eventually find supporting evidence for that claim. But you're going to do it, you're going to have to apply these products for a very long time, 10, 15 years or more, at fairly high rates, and it's going to cost you a fortune to do that. Thousands and thousands of dollars per acre, maybe tens of thousands of dollars per acre, to achieve very nominal, likely biologically insignificant increases in these microbial activity numbers. Okay. So I want to make sure that's clear. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. It could, but it would just be an extremely expensive way to manage your turf grass, I think. So we continue.
Improving soil structure, and what I've discovered is some organic soil structure, and I get those benefits of increasing my microbial activity, improving soil structure. And
so there it was. I almost skipped over it. Improving soil structure. So soil structure, for those who might not be aware, soils are denoted or categorized into different types of structure. So it's the manner in which the soil binds together and forms different types of structures, like blocky structure or platy structure. There's structureless soils, like the USDA putting green is considered structureless. So in the manner in which these PEDs bond together result in macro porosity in the soil that allows a lot of the water movement to drain through. So soil structure is incredibly important to in terms of increasing yields or growing things easily on. When it's structureless, with the exception of USDA putting greens because it's built out of sand, but when it's structureless in a normal soil where we have clays and silts and loams and organic material, when there's no structure, it can be very, very difficult to move water through that soil, and it can be in turn be very, very difficult to grow plants on. So soil structure is immensely important, and we want good soil structure, especially on perennial systems like turf grasses, where we're not really going to be doing a whole lot to it. We're not going to be tearing things off of it. We're not going to be harvesting things from it and tilling it under a lot of times. It's just going to be there for the most part. And in those cases where we're not really destroying any structure or cultivating anything, when well, that's redundant. We don't want to destroy the structure. We're not doing anything to the soil, so the structure is going to stay like that for a while. So, but their claim is applying this particular guy's claim. I don't know his name, Silver Symbol. He's claiming that applying these natural organics is going to increase soil structure.
What I've discovered is some organic is actually better than all organic.
I don't know what he means. Some organic is better than all organic. Okay. I don't know.
The biggest reason you go organic is because it's safe. I've got kids, I've got pets, they're always running outside. So if I go organic when I use lawn fertilizer, that means I can put down fertilizer and my kids or dog can go out immediately after. I don't have to worry about it at all.
Yeah, I don't know what that argument is about. Is he implying that a synthetic fertilizer, and I've heard this before, but is he implying that a synthetic fertilizer is more hazardous to pet or animal or human health because they might eat it or something? Then I don't know what they mean by that. And I've heard that a lot, like natural organics are safer than synthetic fertilizers. Well, let's say you put urea out there, which is extremely hydroscopic. It's going to absorb moisture out of the air. It's going to absorb anything, that any water you put on it, it's going to dissolve and disappear within minutes. Well, in dry areas, maybe hours, okay? But there's nothing there at all now. It's moved into the soil, especially, I mean, you wouldn't want to just put it out. You'd hopefully irrigate it in a little bit. But if you put out a natural organic, and I'm not saying natural organics are a problem, but if you put out a natural organic and water it in, the particle is still going to be there. It's not going to dissolve and move into the soil like a synthetic fertilizer or urea or ammonium sulfate would. So I don't know if that's his point. Like the prill from the synthetic is still going to be there, so my dog's going to eat it or my child's going to eat it or something. I don't know where this fear-mongering comes from. I've never seen anything like that in the literature, that a natural organic would be less harmful than a synthetic fertilizer in terms of any animal interaction. If anything, I've seen the opposite, where mower pickup picks up the slow release materials more than the synthetic soluble materials because they're still on the soil surface and still on the turf surface when the mower comes by, and the synthetic soluble ones have already moved through the soil profile. So I don't know what that argument's all about. I've never seen any data on it at all. So I think that's the reason I think he's just completely full of BS. I mean, he may not think he is, but he is. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And I don't know where to even start with a claim like that, because I'm completely unaware of any evidence in the literature to support or to refute that claim. choosing the right product.
Choosing the right product is really the point of this video. If you get the wrong product, you might get no results, but if you get the right product, you're going to be thrilled, and that's what I'm going to try to share with you in this video so you don't make all the mistakes that I did.
Yeah, I've never actually seen a quote-unquote wrong product if it has nitrogen in it. I mean, if it has nitrogen in it, it's going to work if you put it correctly out. I don't care what it is. I mean, as long as it's capable of being mineralized or it's soluble already, it's going to result in an acceptable lawn if it's applied correctly. I have yet to come across a nitrogen source that would not do that. Of course, I guess it's possible, I guess, in some, there's always a possibility, but he's saying skip Milorganite. Let's see what he has to say about that.
I purchased Milorganite last year. I put down a ton of it on my yard, and I had no results. And that's right, I mean no results. In fact,
yeah, if you put out Milorganite, let me just be as clear as I possibly can here. If you put out Milorganite and you didn't see a result, you didn't do it right. It's just as plain as that I can be. I'm not a Milorganite fan. I'm not a Milorganite enemy. I don't really apply it on my home lawn, but I've done bukus of research with it and published it. You can go in the literature and look in the literature. It is virtually impossible to put out Milorganite correctly according, it's, let's say, half a pound to a pound of nitrogen, depending on, I don't know if it's legal in your area with the phosphorus rates, but assuming that you're able to do that, you're going to see a response to it. You wouldn't want to put out Milorganite or any other slow release material at very, very low rates, 0.1, 0.2 pounds. You're not going to see anything from that. So if you put out Milorganite silver symbol and you didn't see a response, what you're telling me is you didn't do it right. You didn't put out the product correctly. Okay?
in fact, I didn't see anything even after 2 months, and I finally just gave up and decided I needed to find something else.
Well, you didn't do it right.
I tried some others, and I did not get great results, though many of them were better than Milorganite. They just weren't worthwhile using. What I ended up landing on was a product made by a company called the Andersons called Innova, and this was a completely organic product.
This is made from soybean waste or byproducts of the soybean industry. I believe, I'm not mistaken, it's 100% soybean based. And it's a 712. I'm sure it would work very well.
Not made of any kind of waste. It's actually made of soy meal or soybean meal.
Well, that's what waste is. Blood meal, feather meal, bone meal, that's waste. That's a byproduct of the industry. Silver simple. If you don't want to call it waste, don't call it waste, but it's a byproduct of producing soybeans for human or animal consumption. All right.
Andersons is a very large company. Lots of golf courses use their stuff. If you've watched my other videos, I've made some reviews of their spreader, which was really like the Rolls-Royce of spreaders. So when I saw that they had an organic product, I felt like based on their reputation, it would be pretty good. I put it down, and like most organic products, you're not going to see an immediate result. But what I noticed was after the second treatment, I saw a very noticeable result, and I was really happy with it. So that's when I started to change my mind about organics. And for me, Innova was the product of choice. But the main thing that mattered was that actually it worked.
Yeah, well, it worked. Don't forget, I don't know how you did it or what you applied, but it worked after you applied Milorganite. You said it didn't work. Then you applied this product on top of Milorganite a couple months later. So you're compounding the nitrogen out there. Okay. So there's going to be, strictly speaking, some small difference between organic products that are applied in terms of their nitrogen release. There's going to be things like bat guano and chicken litter that have a little bit more soluble nitrogen in them than some other ones like Milorganite, where they have much more than nitrogen actually in the control release form or a slow release form. But for the most part, when you put these things out pound for pound, you chicken litter and you have bone meal and blood meal and whatever else and soybean meal and Milorganite, you have all these pound for pound. It's not normal to see profound differences between these. It's possible. I mean, I'm not saying it's not. It's possible. But assuming it's applied at the same time, the same rate of nitrogen and so forth, all these products are going to work. Okay, you're saying Milorganite doesn't work, but this soybean meal does work. That's hard to believe. So there's nothing wrong with this product at all. It's a 712. I would use it if I had a phosphorus deficiency. I wouldn't use it if I didn't have a phosphorus deficiency. Same thing with Milorganite. I wouldn't use Milorganite unless I had a phosphorus deficiency.
how to save money and make it easy to do. I will do a 70-30 split on the fertilizer. Now don't worry about math or science, you don't need to know any of that. You don't...
Yeah, math and science, you don't need to know any science. Just trust us. We got it all. Okay, don't worry about all the science stuff. That's boring.
Mix any of these products. I recommend using synthetic fertilizer for your first lawn fertilizer treatment. You can use any kind that you like, start with synthetic, and then for your next 2 subsequent treatments, do organic. So basically you're thinking about like a 3 fertilizer cycle. First is synthetic, organic, organic, and then your next one will be synthetic and go back to organic.
Yeah, that could work depending on where you're at, especially if you're in a cool season climate and you're moving into the summertime. You might want to put down an organic like in the early part of the summer so you're not really pushing the grass, but it still has a little food there. Plus it's hot, and a natural organic is going to break down a lot quicker. You're going to get a little bit more bang for your buck during that time of year. So that could work, or alternating. It actually probably is wiser to do that, doing, say, just synthetic and then just slow release. Then it's probably more efficient to do that than cutting the synthetic with too little natural organic. So I've seen these blends go out, well, I'm going to do 80 or 90% soluble with only 10 or 20% slow release, or 10 or 20% polymer coated urea or whatever. You're not really, you still have to get the pounds on the ground of slow release material in order to see a return on it. Remember, when you put out 0.1 or 0.2 from a slow release material, you're not likely going to see a response from that. Okay. So let's say you put out 0.1 from a natural organic, just that, nothing else. I think most people who are in the know would recognize, well, you're probably not going to see a response from that. Well, imagine if you put 0.1 along with 0.8, 0.7 of soluble. So you're putting out almost a pound in. Well, you're going to go, hey, I saw this great response. And you might relate that to partially the slow release that's in the blend. Meanwhile, if you apply the slow release at that rate on its own, you're probably not going to see a response. So what I'm getting at is, you're probably better off putting soluble and then 100% slow than trying to cut the soluble with too little slow. If you're going to cut it with like 10 and 20% soluble. That way you're getting out 0.2 pounds of soluble, or cut it with whatever, 0.3. Get 0.2 or 0.3 soluble out. And then the remaining, half a pound or whatever of slow, you probably would see a response to a half a pound of slow. So if it's cut the other way around, when you only have a fraction of soluble and a big chunk of slow, that might be a good way to go. But doing it the other way around, you might as well just do 100% slow or 100% soluble, in my view. So his approach here is, in my opinion, not a bad idea at all. I think it's probably a wise idea.
Doing that has really gave my lawn the punch of color and the growth, but I feel like the organics have really helped boost the soil structure. And during the season...
See, there it is again, soil structure. That's the reason. And this isn't really a knock on it. I wasn't intending to have this video be like a tinfoil of turf grass. It's more like him making claims about these organics and soil structure and things like that.
When I use those organics, I don't have to have any of those worries about safety, and it really makes my life a little bit easier. But the most important thing is it costs less, because now I'm saving 30% a year that I'm not paying that full organic price. My lawn looks much better. It's definitely greening up more, and the growth has been great.
Okay, so it costs less. I'm going to stop it there, because all he does is then go and talk about spreading and stuff like that. So it costs less, and as you all know, that's one of my little interests is cost. And I think what his point was, it's costing less because I'm not putting out all natural organic. I think that's what he's saying. And if that's the case, then yeah, I mean, obviously putting out a blend or a mixture of slow and then soluble and so forth is going to be less expensive than all slow or all natural organic. I mean, if that's what he's saying, then he's correct. But there's no way you're going to get this particular program or this particular product anywhere in the galaxy of the same price of natural or of synthetic fertilizer. So I did some quick math on this. This NO whatever it was called, this Anderson's product, the 712 product. It has it costs online, what I found was $3,100 a ton, about $60 a bag. And of course it has 140 pounds of nitrogen in a ton. So that runs about $22 per pound of N. Where urea from the same online vendor that I found, of course, has 920 pounds of nitrogen in a ton. And they were selling it for $800 a ton. I think it was $20 a bag. So, which is $1 per pound of N, or a little less than $1 per pound of N, like 80 cents or 90 cents, something like that. So this NO, whatever it's called, costs 22 times more than urea. 22 times more. So I don't know how you come off saying it's going to cost less money. It's going to cost less money if you were going to do all the natural organic and 100%. And then you're like, well, I'm just going to cut some of it with soluble. That's true. Yeah. Now it's going to cost less. Why not just do all soluble if you're going to do that? What's the point at that point? Unless you're trying to reduce burn. If you're trying to reduce burn during the summertime on cool season grasses, then I'm all for that. Or even on warm season grasses in certain times of the year. If you're trying to reduce the risk of phyto, to me, that's the major advantage of natural organics. That's basically the only advantage of natural organics. So unless you have a phosphorus deficiency, they can be very advantageous if you have a phosphorus deficiency. Because you're not going to burn anything with the natural organic. I'll say with Morganite, it is impossible to burn grass with Morganite. I have tried, believe me. And I've told the story before. I literally put on so much Milorganite that the Milorganite was above tall fescue. No. It was bluegrass, Kentucky bluegrass. It was above Kentucky bluegrass. And I think I was cutting that at an inch. That's how much I piled on Kentucky bluegrass to see if it's possible to burn grass, and it didn't burn. So it is extremely safe in terms of burn. You're never going to burn it. If you dumped a bag of Milorganite out there by accident, that spot is not going to die. Not unless you just block it from the sun. It's not going to die from the burn. So there is advantages to it, I guess is what I'm saying, but it's not less expensive. You are going to pay a lot more for that, okay? Okay, now, so he had some claims. And it wasn't really about this particular gentleman in his video and whatever he's doing. It was just like I just wanted to show you all that these claims do exist in the turfgrass industry. Natural organics are going to increase soil structure. They're going to do all these wonderful things, reduce chemical usages and so forth. And that's the reason we have the episode we're going to go over tonight. And I promised I was going to go over some of the comments as I saw them. And because I can't keep up my wife's here. Oh, hello, wifey. What did you say? Hey, let me see what you said. So increase in microbe activity could be due to grass growth, but also could be due to just chemical changes provoked by the fertilizer app itself, correct? Yeah, that's true. Most of the microbial activity, as I've shown on the channel, or a lot of it can be due simply to the turfgrass itself growing more as a result of nitrogen applications, exuding more organic carbon from the roots. And those microbes start feeding on that. So if there's living grass in the soil, you're going to have microbes in that soil. And anything you do to increase that turfgrass growth and the root exudates, you're going to have more microbes. But you can have changes, as you mentioned, but also could be due to just chemical changes provoked by the fertilizer app itself. That is possible as well. So, for example, if you had the pH down low, say 5 or so, and you were wanting to increase the activity of nitrifying bacteria, or say mineralizing bacteria that mineralize nitrogen, you'd want to move the pH up a little closer to 7, or that mineralize sulfur or carbon. Those microbes are more active closer to 7 than they are closer to 5. So chemical changes in the soil would have an effect in that regard as well. So you're right on both cases, but generally speaking, a healthy turfgrass is going to have more than enough microbes to live perfectly acceptable with in the soil. As you know, Lou, my wife's sort of a biologist, or a biologist in many ways. And you know how many bugs are in one little gap of the tooth. Okay, imagine in the soil. So as long as there's an active root in the soil, you're going to have enough roots, enough microbes, more than likely. Okay. So yeah, Mark F says, perhaps one should alternate applications. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that's the only way to do it. And I'm not even saying that's the best way to do it. But I am saying it's probably better to alternate soluble and slow release than it is to cut the soluble with just a little slow release. And with slow release materials, I prefer you to be either pregnant or not pregnant. Either get in or get off. So people oftentimes try to throw in like 20% or 30% slow release. Well, do the math on it. When you put out 1 pound of nitrogen, and 30% is, say, from sulfur-coated urea, what would happen if you just put out 0.3 pounds of N from sulfur-coated urea and that's it? You're probably not going to see much of a response from that at all. Okay, so then why would you put it out just with some urea? Because I think you're maybe convincing yourself that sulfur-coated urea is giving you a response when it's all from the urea, and it's just from the 0.7 pounds of urea from that 1 pound application. And the 0.3 pounds of nitrogen from sulfur coat, yes, it will be released over time. But is it enough on a daily basis to actually induce a response in the turf? It might be, but oftentimes that 0.3, 0.2 pounds is not enough from slow release materials because it tends to last such a long time, 4 or 5, 6 weeks. And I'd rather see people just go ahead and get the slow release materials in those blends high enough. Say, think of it on a per pound of N basis. How much do you need to see a response from this particular material? Let's call it a half a pound N from natural organics. Let's just say that's the case. Well, you wouldn't want to put out a half a pound of N with just a little bit of soluble in it, because now you're reducing that rate that you need down too low. You're reducing it down below the response rate. So that's a little bit more mathematics and some stuff I can go into at some point in the future. But I would prefer to see just soluble or just slow than a soluble with just a tiny bit of slow, because I think you're probably not getting enough return on that investment when you do it that way. Okay. Oh, thanks, Mark. He says, I also stopped watching a boatload of other YouTube channels. I don't know if that's about me. I've been trying to catch up with the chat. Oh yeah. Okay. Since he says, since I started watching this channel, I saved a fortune, not wasting money on all the other kinds of crap for my lawn. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate your comment. I do. I'm glad I have a positive impact on you. Okay, guys, let's get to the article, the scientific article. It's a really easy article. It's a fun little article. It's pretty easy. I'll get through it pretty quick. And it's a part 2 of the article I've already gone over. And this article is entitled Organic Management Practices on Athletic Fields, Part 2, The Effects of Playing Surface Characteristics and Soil Physical Properties. And as you mentioned, when the claim is soil structure, or it'll benefit some part of the soil, that's what soil physical properties are. The soil structure is a soil physical property. So let's get to this. If I can find my pen. Here we go. Okay. This is by Nathan Miller and Jason Henderson, and they are at the University of Connecticut. So I might be in their neck of the woods here in the next 3 or 4 weeks. This was published in one of our top journals. It was Crop Science in 2013, about 10 years ago. Interest in sustainable approaches to turfgrass management practices is increasing rapidly as public opinion regarding environmental and human exposure to pesticides becomes increasingly sensitive. The trend has included school grounds as well as athletic fields in many areas of the United States and Canada, where the use of pesticides have been severely restricted or banned. As a result of these legislative actions, athletic field managers have had to adopt management approaches that do not include the use of pesticides, but research evaluating the ability of pesticide-free or organic management regimes to provide quality, safe playing surfaces conditions is limited. Organic products and best management practices have been researched to reduce reliance on chemicals in turfgrass management. Assessment of organic-based fertilizers have displayed a wide range of effectiveness in their ability to maintain high-quality turfgrass stands. Many organic fertilizers exhibit slower release rates due to their need for microbial breakdown in specific soil environmental conditions. So just so we're clear, the nitrogen in natural organics, all natural organics, is in either a protein or an amino acid or some sort of organic form that requires that form to be broken down by microbes in order for the nitrogen to be converted into ammonium or nitrate. That is the form that the plant can take up. So without adequate moisture, without adequate temperature, without the right pH and all these other things where the microbes aren't active, the response from natural organics is going to be limited because the microbes aren't doing their job, basically. For this reason, higher rates of organic fertilizers may be necessary to achieve desired turf grass color and quality, and this is what I mentioned. Higher rates may be required from these particular materials, and we published this. This is from Brian and Laurie, and we published papers since Dr. Trenholm and Unruh did this work that also confirmed what they published in 2005. That you just, if you're going to go the slow release route, I'm A-okay with that, no problem. Just don't have the delusion that you can just put a little bit out and get the same response from a little bit of soluble. You put out 0.3, 0.4 pounds of soluble nitrogen like urea, you're going to see a response. You put out 0.3 pounds, 0.4 pounds of a very slow polymer-coated urea, you won't see a thing. you won't see anything happen because it's so slow. And the turfgrass response rate is higher than what it would release in any given day. Increased mowing heights and adequate in-fertilizations on cool season grass species. So these are things that have been done by researchers. I'm going to list a couple things here. So increased mowing heights and adequate nitrogen fertilization, corn gluten meal and corn gluten hydrolysate, the practice of overseeding and mulching tree leaves in place have also been shown to control weed populations. Overseeding with multiple high-rate applications of perennial ryegrass or tall fescue, these have all been reported to provide significant reductions in perennial weed populations on cool season athletic fields, okay, by all these researchers. Mulching tree leaves as a leaf litter disposal method has reduced common dandelion. Liquid compost teas, which are water extracts from fermented compost, have been more extensively researched in agriculture and horticultural crops than in turfgrass systems. Disease suppression by compost teas is often variable. Dollar spot severity was suppressed by 40 to 60% on creeping bentgrass. However, these results by Frank Rossi were inconsistent and not reproducible across all 3 years of the study. So what they're saying, the authors are saying, is the use of some types of organic materials can have an effect on weed populations. It could possibly have an effect on some diseases. It's possible. Okay. Research has also evaluated the effects of organic materials on the physical properties of root zone materials when added as an amendment. Now, keep in mind, there's a difference between adding it as an amendment or top dressing and adding it as a fertilizer. The main difference is the mass of material as an amendment is many-fold greater than the mass of material as a fertilizer. And that's what it takes, mass of material over many, many years to really have an effective change, a meaningful change in soil physical properties. When organic materials such as sphagnum peat, reed sedge peat, or compost are used as a soil amendment, the organic content of the mix increases, the bulk density of the mix decreases, the water holding capacity increases, and the saturated hydraulic conductivity decreases. Okay? However, there is limited data on the effects of organic materials such as organic fertilizers on root zone physical properties when used as a part of a comprehensive management program. Although fertilizers are added to the turfgrass system at much lower rates than amendments, their potential effect on soil physical properties are not well documented. Okay? While there has been extensive characterization of athletic field playing condition, the effect of organic management techniques on these parameters is relatively unknown. This research was designed to assess the playing surface characteristics and root zone physical properties of athletic fields as influenced by conventional and organic management regimes. Okay, so specifically, they're going to be looking at rotational traction, surface hardness, and soil physical properties. Rotational traction, for those who may not know, there's many different ways to measure it, but essentially what it does is it gives the turf manager an idea as to the risk to the player as to whether or not their foot will slip on the turf grass. So higher rotational traction is going to result in the foot sticking on the surface more, which can impart more stress on the ACL and MCL in the knee, likely resulting or at least being related to more injuries. And lower rotational traction can result in more slippage, which can also result in player harm. So there's a Goldilocks zone range where you want to maintain rotational traction, and I don't know what that is. I'm not a sport turf professional or specialist, but that's what rotational traction is. And of course, we know surface hardness and soil physical properties. Okay, this study, I'm going to go over this fairly quickly. This study was designed as a 2x6 factorial with overseeded and non-overseeded as the 2 factor, and the 6 factor was the organic or synthetic or conventional regime. So 1 was the conventional, 2 was the organic manure, 3 was the organic protein, 4 was the organic manure with compost tea, and then 5 was the organic protein with compost tea, and then 6 was the control. Okay. Okay, it was initiated on 2-year-old stand of Longara, Kentucky bluegrass at the University of Connecticut Plant Science Research and Education Facility in Storrs, Connecticut. I will be in Connecticut, believe it or not. Unfortunately, my wife's on here, so she knows. Unfortunately, we had a really close family friend pass away a little while ago, a week or 2 ago. And he helped raise my son and all sorts of stuff. It's a mess. Well, they're having his services in the exact same location as the New England Turfgrass Research Foundation conference. So I'm going to fly up there in like a week or two, turn around and fly back, land, sleep, get up the very next morning and fly right back to the exact same airport to go to the New England Turfgrass Research Foundation. And the reason I'm saying that is because it says in Stores, Connecticut, and I'm having to go into Connecticut and go to his services. So I'll be on a plane a lot, but it's a small price to pay for that family. They're really good people. Anyway, irrigation was applied as needed to prevent drought stress for the umpteenth time. That's a very scientific, specific word, umpteenth. Yeah, every single paper I go over is the same thing. Irrigation was applied needed to prevent drought stress. It's the most important factor. I've said it hundreds and hundreds of times on this channel. Water is the most important factor. You know, when we can't control it in lawn care, it makes our life so much more difficult. When the homeowner's in charge of it and when they're in control of it, it is difficult to do your job in lawn care. It is not easy. So water, water, water. It's the most important thing. And it's almost always too much water. Okay. The fertility programs. Nick, I'll answer your question in just a minute. Organic protein plots, these are going to go over the fertility regime. The organic protein plots receive soybean and alfalfa protein products, dehulled soybean meal, alfalfa, distilled dried grain, and potassium sulfate and molasses. Organic manure plots were treated with dehydrated poultry litter product, which is a 433. And what they do here, I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but basically the organic regime is 100% organic from top to bottom. Meaning they didn't put any pesticides out there that are chemical based. Everything NPK, everything's all organic. Okay, there's nothing that could be determined to be synthetic. Okay, and everything, pests, everything that was put on those plots was organic. When it comes to the conventional, they used urea, triple superphosphate, and potassium chloride for their NPK sources, and then they go through the pesticide applications and so forth. Basically, the short and skinny of it is on the conventional program, they applied some products to control broadleaf weeds. The natural organic products, they applied some products that were natural organics. Okay. They weren't ever applied. They didn't ever apply a chemical to the natural products, and they never applied a natural product to the conventional regime. The fungicides, again, there was a fungicide applied to the conventional treatments, but not the natural organic. And then the insecticides were the same way. Okay. So everything's all legit. Everything's separated. Okay. So we have all organic and then we have the conventional. Traffic simulation was conducted where they use a traffic simulator. Weekly overseeded treatments received a blend of perennial ryegrass. That was part, they either overseeded them or they did not overseed them. And data collection. The rotational traction was collected. Surface hardness and soil moisture was collected. Saturated hydraulic conductivity, which is the percolation of water, essentially, was also measured. That's a measure of the soil physical properties in a way. Bulk density is a soil physical property. Particle density seemed odd. I don't know why they did particle density, but that's fine. Aeration porosity and organic matter. All this was all the parameters they used for soil physical properties. I don't know. I read this the first time, particle density. That seems strange because particle density almost never changes. It's almost always the particle density of quartz, because quartz dominates most of our soils. It's almost always like 2.6, 2.65. Regardless, I don't know why they measured that, but they did. And I don't know what that would do for you. Regardless. Anyway, so the results and discussion. Before I get to the results and discussion, let me go to, there was a question or two in the chat I wanted to address here. Yeah, my wife has some good sayings. Data, folks, or it didn't happen. Now you see why we get along so well. Yeah. There you go, Chuck. Here, Lou. Chuck's doubling up here. He says, I'll see your peer review and raise you a double-blind study. Last week, I briefly mentioned my opinion on peer review. And I value peer review, but in a broad sense, I guess I value it. But specifically speaking, I really don't care about peer review. What I care about is refereed studies, because refereed studies are peer reviewed, but they had a chance of being rejected. I kind of went over that a little bit. I think that's where Chuck's getting that comment from. So I'm with you on that one, Chuck. Double blind is going to be refereed. And the only other criterion would be a impact factor journal. So you can have a rough read paper that sucks, and I wouldn't have a lot of confidence in it if it's not in an impact factor journal. And I'll go over that at some point in the future. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Yeah. So Lou says all good points. Yeah. So you're participating tonight. My wife's participating. She must be upstairs bored. She just loves science so much. She gets all the dental science, and then she comes and learns more about turfgrass science. All right, Nick, here's your question. Nick Chatterton says, do I have a journal or book you would recommend to homeowners to become more educated rather than succumbing to the siren songs of YouTube charlatans? I did, and it's easy to get addicted. Yeah. A book or a journal for the average homeowner. I don't know about that one. Let me think here. I don't think I have just like a normal, but let me look. You know what you might do, if I can get the thing focused here? You might actually, Nicholas, I don't know where you live, what state you live in. That might actually help me, because if I were to recommend something for a homeowner, it would probably be like an extension bulletin or an extension publication through your land grant institution at your state, or one nearby, a turf program nearby, probably. Like in Florida, they used to have the Florida Lawn Handbook, which is here. So this is a really, really old one. This was published in, good Lord, I don't know, 90s or something. I don't know. But this type of book is intended for, and then you'll notice Dr. Elliott's note on here. She gave this to me, by the way, before anybody calls me out. The Florida Lawn Handbook is an example of a book published by a university intended for homeowners. Okay. So you might check your land grant institution or something nearby and see if there's a publication or a book or a small manual that they provide. That might be the best route to go. For Florida, the Florida Lawn Handbook, which I don't think they publish anymore, but you can look up the BMP manuals. They're just as good, if not better, because they're more up to date. Mark says, does my wife constantly question me with how do we know what we know? No, that's me telling her. Believe me, I think she'll chime in and say the same thing. I'm always asking her that. She kind of gets tired of my neurodiversity. It's not me being contrary or me being overly skeptical. It's me just wanting to know. That's all. I just want to know, like, okay, well, how do we know that? Because I'd like to believe, like I've mentioned before, one of the tenets of my position is I'd like to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible. So if someone says, well, the earth is flat. Okay, well, how do you know? Or even if the earth is a globe, how do you know? And I want to know. I want to go look up the experiments that were done and how they determined that. And, I just want to know. So that's me asking those questions. And Mark, yeah, so I'm the one who bugs her to death. She puts up with a lot. So anyway, okay, results. Rotational traction and surface hardness. Before initiating traffic, the control treatment had the highest traction values with few differences between the remaining treatments. Table 1. Once traffic started, the rotational traction values were similar across all management regimes. And you're going to see that a lot in these results. I'm going to show nearly all these results in table forms. They did a good job of showing the results in tables. So here we go. Table 1 is the effect of management regime and overseeding on rotational traction during traffic in 2008 and 9. So this is rotational traffic in newtons per meter. I thought this used to be a different unit newton per square meter, but whatever. I'm not a sport turf person, so I'm probably wrong. And here you'll see the main effects, which are overseeding or not overseeding. And here's the management criteria. So I highlighted the control. This is a negative control, and then the conventional would be considered the positive control. And in this case, what you want to be doing is you're going to be looking down down the dates. So August, September, October, November 2008, and then in 2009. And this is going to give us an idea as to whether or not the organic program or the overseeding changed the rotational traction. And you'll see from the beginning, the rotational traction was 43.5. And indeed, on August 12th, every product, including the conventional, lowered the rotational traction from 43 to 40, and even down to the high 39s, 39.7, okay? So when they first started, there was a little bit of reduction in rotational traction. And then that reduction continued here from the organic products on September 18th. So there is a little bit of reduction here. This is not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. Because I'm not a sport turf specialist in this, I'm not a specialist in this particular area. Remember, there's a range. I don't know if lowering it's going to result in more slippage, but increasing it's going to result in more risk to the knee, of the athlete's knee. So I don't know the range that they try to keep these rotational traction numbers within. I don't know. And then in the literature, in the discussion, he mentions that the rotational traction was within acceptable ranges for everything. So we're lowering them, I don't think would be a benefit. If it's within the range, it's within the range and you just move on. But it did, the organics did lower it here a little bit. Biologically, I would say it's insignificant, 32 to 31, but it did. And then you didn't see a result here. Then you saw a result again here in some of the products. And in the second year, you didn't see any, or you did see an increase using the conventional compared to the control. So rotational traction, there was a little bit going on. Okay, there was a little bit. Sometimes the natural organics lowered the rotational traction. Other times it didn't do anything. Here's a case where one of the organics actually increased rotational traction compared to the control, compared to the plots that received nothing. And then again, there's nothing going on here, nothing going on here. So give or take, sometimes nothing happened. Sometimes there was a reduction. Sometimes there was an increase compared to doing nothing. Okay. In most cases, the conventional always had the highest rotational traction, which was, you can see here this A and A and A and A and A and A. So only the exception was at the beginning. Everything after that, the conventional had the highest rotational traction, but the organics were mostly in line with that, with one or two dates where they were lower than that. Again, I don't know what that means because they were all within acceptable ranges, so it doesn't make any difference really, but that's what happened with the rotational traction. Okay. Now, the effect of management regime on surface hardness values showed minimal differences during the traffic period, table 2. Overseeding had no effect on surface hardness, table 2. So now we go down to table 2 and we see overseeding, and you see all these have A's except for the very, very end where November 6th, where the overseeding lowered surface hardness by maybe 1% or 2%. Something, I guess that'd be 3%, something like that, very little. And then you see the organic versus the conventional on surface hardness. Nothing happened except for there's one little blip on the radar here where there was a little bit of reduction in surface hardness from this organic manure product compared to the conventional and the control. It went from basically 48 to 45 on the GMAX numbers. And then at the very end of 2009, everything resulted in a reduction of surface hardness, including the conventional compared to the control. So the organics didn't separate out from the conventional program at that point, and they didn't separate out from the conventional program at the end of November. So the only time that there was a point where the organic program resulted in a reduction in surface hardness was on September 15th of 2008, when there was just a little bit, went from 48 to 45 on GMAX. Every other date, August, September, October, November, 2008, 2009, there was zero difference between the conventional and the organic manure or the organic management program on surface hardness. So they didn't affect surface hardness. And overseeding didn't affect surface hardness except for one little blip at the very end of the study. Okay. Let's skip to 2009. I already looked at that. Okay, I already looked at all that. Okay, so soil physical properties. Data from undisturbed soil cores collected at the conclusion of the traffic period indicated that management regimes had no effect. So had no effect on soil physical properties, on total porosity, aeration porosity, capillary porosity, or saturated hydraulic conductivity. And additionally, management regimes yielded no differences in bulk density, particle density, or organic matter. Table 4. So let's look at Table 3 and Table 4. And you'll see here this whole section. I'm just going to highlight this whole section. This whole section, all of this is 2008, 2009 porosity, capillary porosity, hydraulic conductivity. Nothing changed in terms of essentially the porosity or the water movement or water retention. Nothing. Okay. Between conventional, organic, or the control. 0. The only thing that did change was when it was overseeded, there was a little bit of an increase, biologically insignificant in my opinion, but there was a little bit of increase in total porosity, aeration porosity in 2008, and capillary porosity in 2009. Again, I would argue that that's biologically irrelevant. It's insignificant. It doesn't make any difference. But overseeding did have a little bit of an increase in some cases. Again, the plant itself is imparting the effect. As I've mentioned before, when there's a plant there, the plant's having a major effect on the system. Oftentimes we overlook that. And when you overseed it, you're growing more plants in that system, it's having an effect. But the fertilizers, whether it's organic or conventional, aren't having an effect on these parameters of soil physical properties. Now let's look at Table 4. This is bulk density, which is sort of my world, particle density, and organic matter. This is where I spent a lot of my time in the past studying these areas. And you'll see nothing happened at all. And this is when you start dealing with bulk density, particularly you start dealing with particle density, you're doing some pretty serious science there. And so if you're doing it correctly, which he did, he went out there, he said undisturbed soil core. So he's going out there with soil cores and doing this correctly. That's a lot of work. Okay. That's a heck of a lot of work. And no differences between the control, the positive control, negative control, and any other treatment. Nothing. Okay. But once again, when you overseeded it, there's a reduction in bulk density, which is what we would expect. There's a little bit of a reduction in particle density, which I don't know how in the heck that happened. I don't even know. And that's irrelevant anyway. It's 2.59 compared to 2.589 compared to 2.583. Biologically, it's irrelevant. That's insignificant. But I'd like to actually know how they measure that, because I don't know how you would get a difference in particle density from an overseeding, but whatever. But they did in both years. Here it is again, 2.612 and 2.606, regardless. And anyway, you're not going to do anything about particle density anyway. What you care about is bulk density and organic matter. In both cases, they reduce the bulk density and increase the organic matter. When you see this organic matter, anytime you see this unit, grams per kilogram, it sounds confusing to our English audience, but all you got to do is move the decimal place over one unit, one part to the left, and that's percent. So when it says 64.49 grams per kilogram, you're like, I don't know, Travis is losing me on these metric units. Just think of it as 6.4%. So organic matter went from 6.1% with no overseeding to 6.4% with overseeding over here in 2009. I don't know if that's really biologically relevant or not, but if you compounded that over many, many years, that might be useful to you. But none of the fertilizers did squat. All right. 2009, no differences between management regimes were observed for any of the porosity data. I mentioned that. So I already mentioned all this stuff. Okay, let's skip down to the bottom. Here's the organic matter. The management regimes on the x-axis and organic matter, and again, grams per kilogram. Just remember, think of it as percent. So it's 1%, 2%, 3%, 4%, 5, 6, 7, 8. Think of it as percent. It may be easier for you guys to keep up with. I don't know. Maybe you already know it. I don't know. Sorry, I don't mean to imply you don't know what you're doing. But the organic manure, when it was overseeded, resulted in more organic matter, and the organic protein resulted in more organic matter. But the other ones did not, whether they included the organic material or not. Okay. Or I'm sorry, whether they included the overseed or not. It didn't matter what regime you put it in. So the overseed did have an effect on 2 of the regimes, but none of the others on organic matter. Okay, conclusions. Management regime had minimal effects on playing surface characteristics, surface hardness, and rotational traction before, during, and after simulated athletic field traffic. Minimal differences in rotational traffic between management regimes were measured, but all values were well within the limits considered acceptable for athletic fields. Yeah, I'd like to know what that is. I don't know anything about athletic field measurements of like this sort of thing. I know Tennessee has a huge program there. I think Penn State at one point had a lot of sport turf stuff up there. And I know they have ranges that are safe for the players and whatnot. I don't know what they are. I have no clue. And but they say they were well within the ranges, acceptable ranges. Management regimes also had a minimal effect on surface hardness across the 2 simulated traffic seasons. The greatest surface hardness values were measured in mid to late fall of the second year in the untreated control with minimal turfgrass cover. Aggressive overseeding minimally impacted surface hardness and rotational traction over the duration of the study. So, it had a little bit of effect, but not much. Chuck. Management regimes did not affect soil physical properties, indicating that the use of organic fertilizers at the rates applied over a 2-year period will not increase soil organic matter or change porosity values in a sandy loam texture soil. Now remember, I've mentioned this many, many times. It's all anecdotal, but I've seen it, where there's in my opinion, the greatest living soil turfgrass soil scientist, and possibly the greatest soil turfgrass scientist in history, is down in, he's retired, but he lived down in the plantation area of Florida, down in like think of like West Palm, that sort of area, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm. And they put sod on his lawn in the 70s or 80s. And over years, you can dig down in the soil and you can actually see that soil over 30 or 40 years has actually started to develop into a soil rather than just beach sand. You can see where it's starting to hold together, it's starting to actually clump together, and it's starting to develop what you would think of as a soil rather than just sand. And I've mentioned that before, is that this study is showing nothing happened. Okay, nothing applied over this 2-year period. But I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, over 2 or 3 or 4 years, 5 years, maybe even 7 or 8 years, you're not really going to see anything. But it is possible, and there is evidence in the literature, over 10, 15 years or more of just the plant growing in the system, the turf grass growing in the system, it will exude compounds that will help result in a soil development. So if you're adding these natural organics on top of that, it is possible, although exceedingly expensive to do it, it is possible to also have that effect. But it would take many, many, many years, and not 5. We're talking 10, 15, maybe even 20 years or more of regular applications of these fertilizers, not compost, not amendments. I'm talking organic fertilizers to actually have some sort of biological beneficial effect to the soil. The plant itself will do this. Okay, a healthy growing plant will do this already on its own. So I'm not saying it's not possible. I guess that's what I'm saying. This particular study didn't find that over 2 years. 2 years wasn't enough time. Aggressive overseeding had the greatest impact on soil physical properties, increasing aeration and total porosity values and decreasing particle and bulk density values for the first year. The second year, aggressive overseeding increased soil organic matter when accompanied by organic fertilizers. So if you want to increase all these values, you want to do it in a short period of time, overseed. There's a lot of disadvantages with overseeding, but you're going to put perennial ryegrass out there. It's going to germinate fast. It's going to grow fast. It's going to put a lot of carbon and organic material into the soil. You're going to mow it. Even if you kill it off in the spring or summer, there's a lot of organic material that you added in there, or the plant added in there. So if you want to do this, I don't really know why you'd need to do it, but if for some reason you were convinced that you actually needed to increase all these soil properties or just move them into some sort of favorable way into your favorable numbers, fertilizers is probably not the way to do it. It's probably a plant function. Overseed it. Get the grass to grow more. Get a grass to grow more. Okay. However, when organic fertilizers were applied with compost tea, no difference in soil organic matter was observed. Compost tea didn't do anything. Based on the data collected, organic management regimes did not improve soil physical properties when subjected to simulated athletic traffic over a 2-year period. So, like I was saying at the beginning with the video, when we have these videos of these BS artists getting on and just spouting a bunch of nonsense, we have 1 million subscribers, not 1 million views. This guy almost has 1 million subscribers. Huge, huge, massive impact. One video goes out from that channel, it's going to have far more of an impact than probably all the universities combined in a year. I mean, it's that magnitude of an impact that particular channel can have. And they're just spouting BS. They're just saying stuff that sounds correct. it can have a tremendously negative impact on our industry. So when we go to the literature and we look at this, they go, well, we're not seeing anything in the first couple of years. We're seeing nothing. Now, if you're going to be there for 10 or 15 years, 20 years, and you're going to do this regularly over and over and over, I don't know if anybody's ever done that compared to just conventional. I don't know if you'd see more of an increase in these beneficial properties using natural fertilizers than you would just using conventional fertilizer and just letting the grass do the job for you. The grass itself is going to do a lot of this for you. You just got to keep it growing and keep it healthy, keep it going. It'll be fine. Now, again, natural organic applications, it's possible to see a little bit of a benefit over many, many years, but it just saddens me when I see so many videos go out by these channels that can have such a beneficial impact on our industry and our society, but they just continue to spew out this nonsense. And Silver Symbol's no different than some of these other channels I've gone over. He probably has a lot of good information. I don't know. I haven't watched his channel. Probably a lot of good information, but a lot of misinformation as well. And it's hard to differentiate between the two if you're not well versed in the literature. So with that, I'll read some comments before I go. Rob asked a good question. Any comments on A.J. Turgeon books? Right here. So I don't have his new book. I do have, this is the very, very first book I ever got in Turfgrass Science, was Turfgrass Management, 4th edition from A.J. Turgeon at Oklahoma State. In fact, there's probably still an Oklahoma State sticker on here. I don't know if there is or not. But he has I guess it's Kaminsky now, has the authorship on that book. I don't know, but he has a new book out that's much bigger than this book. This is a very basic book. And this, to your question, Rob, how about this book in terms of a normal book or an average book for a homeowner? This would be an okay book. It's I don't know how interested you are in going down those roads, but these types of books are books that students use in universities. Not there's anything wrong with that. You can use it too. It might not be. I don't know what kind of level you're looking at getting into. Like if you just want to know like the average. Hey, I just want to know how much nitrogen I got to apply. Well, you don't need that book. But if you want a little bit more information, a little bit more detail, then yes, A.J. Turgeon's book would be an excellent book to start with, in my opinion. Yes, good question. By the way, I have a whole episode. It's called What's on My Bookshelf. In fact, let me pull it up I can't pull it up. Can I pull that up? Is there a way for me to actually pull up what's on my own channel while I'm on my own channel? I don't know. Maybe I can. Yeah, I don't think I can. Oh, it's in the members only. Oh, it's in the member only thing. So there's an episode called What's on My Bookshelf. I was going to show it to you. Well, maybe I can sign in. I'll show you the episode before I sign off tonight. If I can get in. I may end up shutting the whole system down here while I'm logging in. Who knows? Never tried this before. If you go to my website and you go to, I think it's like members, the members list or something. Yeah, I don't know. I can't find it. Anyway, there's an episode called What's on My Bookshelf, and I just can't find it. But I believe it's a members only video, if I'm not mistaken. So you'd have to be a member to actually see that channel. And I go through every book on my bookshelf. The point is, I do have an episode. He's asking about books. I do have an episode that is all about every book on my bookshelf, and there is I just can't find it. I can't find it right now, but as soon as I hang up, I'll find it. And I go over every single book on my bookshelf, and I go and I mention my comments on the books and whether or not I think it would be useful for the average turf person. And just every book here behind me on the shelf I go over, and I believe it's under a members only channel. I can't remember. Members only stream. Yeah. I don't know what you're asking, John Duncan. I would answer your question, but like when, yeah, I'm not sure what you're mentioning here. Can organic matter be too high? Mine runs around 13 to 14%. Should I go back to raking leaves instead of mulching leaves? Organic soils are normally defined by having the organic matter percentage greater than 20%. I don't know of a case. I mean, as long as you're able to have water movement through the soil and there's not water ponding up and there's, you're able to dry out the roots, was where I'm going with this. Then I don't know if you can have too high of an organic matter in the soil, because like I said, there's sod production that is grown, that functions on organic soils where they don't apply any nitrogen, because the organic matter in the soil mineralizes enough nitrogen to sustain the growth of the turf on its own without additional application of nitrogen. There are not that many of them, but they do still exist. And they do fine, but the underlying soil is all sand. So anytime it rains an inch sometimes in a day or two down in South Florida, and there's no ponding. The water just moves right through the system. So as long as you don't have water sitting in, and the roots are soaked in water because it can't drain the water, the organic matter would be fine. Yeah, I don't know if you could have too much. It would all have to do with whether the water. So as long as you can get the water to move through, you'd be fine. Yeah. Well, you're saying that you say it drains fine. So I wouldn't. Well, I mean, unless you tell me the turfgrass looks unacceptable or some problem with it, I would move forward with the assumption that you're probably fine. But I mean, there's always the what if. I mean, there's always a case where maybe I'm wrong. But in most cases, organic matter is a good thing. It's only when you have a lot of traffic and you're compressing that organic matter down and it's resulting in reduction of water movement where you probably want to start thinking about having some sort of something done to the soil to help move that water through it. Okay, guys, I will be back I hope I'll be back on Monday morning. I thought I'd be back this Monday morning, but there was a holiday. I'm pretty sure next Monday morning I'll be back on for the members only. So I really appreciate everybody showing up tonight. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back Monday for the members only. Bye.